Okay, we should be good.
All righty. I just wanted to notify the public that we had a workshop earlier today, and I read the written determination regarding open and public meetings so that we are able to conduct our meetings electronically for the next 30 days due to the pandemic. So with that being said, we'll play it by ear, and we'll just at each meeting, we'll make a determination if we're ready to go public or not. I know public is anxious for us to be back in front of them in person, but I also want to make sure that we're all safe. So just so you know, I did make that determination for the next 30 days, and we'll just go from there. So at this point, I'm going to, do we need to do a roll call first, or I call the meeting to order?
Call us to order and then I'll do the roll call.
Okay, so I'm going to call the regular city council meeting of Moab to order at 6:03 p.m. And we'll start with the roll call, Summer.
Okay, sorry, I may have dogs barking in the back and I apologize. So we have Jason Taylor, Moab City Council, Mayor Joette Langanese, Ben Billingsley, acting Deputy City Manager / Finance Director, Carly Castle, acting City Manager / Deputy City Manager, Kaylin Jones, Moab City Council, Luke Wojciechowski, Moab City Council, Ronnie Duressery, Moab City Council, and Tawny Knudsen Boyd, Moab City Council.
Very good, thank you. Next up is citizens to be heard. Do we have anybody out there? Summer?
We do. We have a few people in the waiting room. Give me just a sec.
All right.
Do you want them to come in one at a time or do you want them all in at the same time?
I don't mind having them all in at the same time.
Okay, just a sec. Okay, everyone should be joining. And just for the record, we did have 2 responses on our citizens to be heard sheet from Khaki Hunter and Lisa Carter.
Great, thank you. So it looks like we have 4 folks. We've got Alan Fogg, we've got High Point Hummer, which is the McFarlands, I think, and we've got Karen Feary and Rosalind McGann. And so I'm going to start with you, Al, or John Fogg. And whoever else is in the room with you, it looks like Dave. So John and Dave, you need to unmute.
Unmute. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, we're just here on the consent agenda to answer any questions you may have on the car show. Okay,
thank you then. We'll just go ahead and we'll be doing that in a few minutes. So if you want to just hang tight, we've got a presentation and then the consent agenda. So I'm going to move on to Rosalind.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about my background there. It was from a previous meeting at USU. I'm Rosalind McKinn. I'm a USU professor in sustainable communities. And I was just in the previous meeting and had heard the presentation about city's water conservation plan, and have a question about gray water. So it was mentioned in the presentation that gray water will no longer be considered in the code for Moab. And I was extremely disappointed to hear that, especially after the comment period that we had with the working group. And the city of Tucson has managed to put gray water into their city code. And I don't know why Moab can't do that. We're a much smaller scale, with the option to opt out if approved by the Southeast Utah Health Department, if it doesn't make sense for the property. We are in the second driest state in the nation, and the city of Moab is in the largest global warming hotspot in North America. And so if the city is working actively on water conservation, gray water is a huge part of that. The shower alone, the shower faucet is about 23% of the indoor household water use, so over 30 gallons per household per day on average in the US. This could be a huge water resource for our landscape. And I just really strongly encourage that education is not the focus, and instead that goes back as a code consideration. Social marketing is my field, and in our campaign work, we always advocate from research that information alone is not enough to change behavior. And so if it is an education campaign, I'd like to see what steps would be made to make that more effective.
Okay, thank you. We'll follow up with Mila on that and have her reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karen. Karen Fury, are you with us? There you are.
I am here, but more as an observer.
Okay. All right, so you don't have any citizens to be heard, then we'll just go ahead and take you out and you can certainly continue to watch.
Now,
Thank you, Karen. High Point Hummer.
Go ahead. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, really sad to hear that gray water is not going to be something that the city's excited about. I think as well that that is an excellent resource in most major cities. That is how you get your landscaping irrigation water. So hopefully we can revisit that one. Actually, what I called in about tonight, though, is the 8 p.m. curfew for OHVs with an exhaust that emits louder than an 85 decibel. Those vehicles will not be able to drive on the road. I am the only outfitter in Moab, UTV outfitter, that has a fleet of vehicles that register lower than that threshold. So all of my competitors are at a huge disadvantage. This isn't right. This isn't fair. The only reason that I have this fleet is because Can-Am came out with a brand new 2022 model that was first released 6 months ago. And we weren't even able to get to order them until about 4 months ago. And we were lucky enough to receive the few that we got. Aside from that vehicle, and there might be one or two others out there that are right on the edge of being legal, but the Can-Am comes in at 82.7. So significantly lower than the 85 decibel meeting. This leaves only one option for the rest of the outfitters in town. They're going to have to trailer their machines up to Sand Flats, park them, and then do their tour and put them back on a trailer and drive them back down. The big problem with that is there isn't even close to enough parking on Sand Flats for all of those trucks and trailers required to meet the demand for the outfitting businesses in town. My request is that the city revisit this ordinance and postpone the curfew until there are machines that are available that they can buy, which will be next spring. It's going to take a year for these guys to be able to purchase these machines. And that's doing it as fast as they can. Half of my Can-Am fleet that's new for 2022 came in without any electronic components in them. They don't run, they don't work. But we still have them on property. We have over 30 machines, brand new, that don't run. That's the current situation. So it's not a question of an unwillingness to comply. It's not a question of not even them having enough funding to go out and buy an entire new fleet. It's a question of you can't, regardless of how much money you have or don't have. They're just not available. So hopefully the city can apply a little bit of common sense and a little bit of cooperation and understand that your businesses in town are trying to comply with you, but they are unable to, and it's no fault of their own. So trailering is not an option, not for that many machines, not for that many companies. So please look at revisiting this, look at suspending the curfew until next spring at the earliest. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate everything that you're doing to get the word out and hearing what you guys are doing. So thanks for your comments.
Thank you. Go Greywater.
I just got clarification that that may not be the case, and I don't know, I see iPhone, I don't know if that's Mila or not, but she was gonna jump back on and clarify the gray water issue.
She
that
hasn't
was-
jumped back on yet. She's, I just sent her the link.
Okay, so she should clarify that for everybody here in a minute. But Miss Kai, is it Kyle Weston?
Yeah, I'm just observing. I don't have any comments, but I am running statewide in Utah for the Democratic nomination, and I'm on a 6-county tour, and I'm just in Grand County learning about all of your important issues, and I'll be in Carbon County tomorrow. So this is just educational and listening in. So I'm not here to say anything in particular.
Okay, well, good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And iPhone. Mr. or Miss iPhone, are you with us? Okay, hopefully they're just observing as well. And it doesn't look like Mila's back on yet.
Haven't seen her yet.
So I am going to go ahead and move on with the agenda, and perhaps we can get some clarification from Mila. But my understanding is that that it has not been taken off as consideration in our code. And from my hearing of that presentation was, it's more complicated than we thought. And so I don't think that means we're not going to do it. It's just not going to be as simple as we thought that it was. So more work needs to be done. So I'm just going to move right back into our agenda. Presentation, voter experience with ranked choice voting with Kayleen Potter. Is she on the call?
She will be joining
I
in just a
see.
second.
I see her, but Summer, before
Yes.
we get to her, would you mind reviewing with the council the responses you got from our survey with Moab City?
Sure,
then
hold on
we'll
just
go-
a second. Let me pull up my info. Hold on just a sec.
Okay.
I will note that Colleen Potter is with, oh, dang it, I keep forgetting. Ranked choice voting. She'll have to correct me, I apologize, but she is also the mayor of Heber City. And they have been doing this presentation for those cities that participated in the ranked choice voting process this year. So this was a survey that was sent out to Utah voters. And it is different from the survey that was sent out to just our Moab City voters.
Are we ready to, can I share my screen?
Yeah, I thought Summer was gonna share her screen
Yeah,
first.
just give me just a sec. I did email the results of our survey to all the council members, so you should have that information. I apologize, I was not prepared. Got about 47 screens up and none of them are the right ones, so.
You wanna wait? You wanna wait till after?
Sure, we
Kayleen?
can do that. We can let Kelly
Okay.
go and
All right,
share after she's done.
okay, sounds good. All right. Welcome.
Thank you. So can I share mine now?
Sure.
You should be able to, yes.
Okay. All right, you guys are the first presentation of this, so let's see if we can make this work. Let's see, share. Oops. No. Oh dear. That is not what we want. Okay, let me try one more time. Share screen. Okay. It's not working, right?
No.
Don't
there's
say
nothing.
anything yet.
Huh. I don't know why. Oh my goodness. Oh. Let me try one thing and then I'll let you go ahead and I'll have to. You know what? I'm going to have you go to the next item and I'm going to pull someone in to help me figure this out. I'm so.
Okay, while you're doing that, I can share my screen.
Okay,
Great.
go ahead.
Thanks.
once I share my screen, I lose everything. So I'm hoping that you're seeing our ranked choice voting
We are.
municipal election survey. We did have 103 responses. Lisa did send it out to both papers. It's been on our social media page multiple times. There was a link to it on our website, so it's been available there. For the most part, I don't know that we had a lot of voter excitement for ranked choice voting. I think most folks found that it was fairly easy to use. You can see here, but you know, they also felt that like the instructions were clear, but then when you get down here about how much did you like or dislike using the ranked choice voting ballot, it doesn't look like it was a very popular way to go. So, you know, it was a good trial. That's why they have the pilot program. We were never locked into it, so we don't have a municipal election this year. It will be next year. But, you know, I did out of 103 answers, and we kind of have mixed results, but it doesn't appear to me like it was favored all that well by our voters.
Interesting.
Yes. But this was emailed out to everybody just so you can kind of go through and see what the feedback was on this process for us.
Well, it looks like the majority of the people were dissatisfied.
Not very pumped on it.
Right. And we only got 103 results and over 900 people voted. So
Right. I mean,
too.
and the other piece too is that, you know, once the election's over, people kind of push it out of their minds and it's not really at the forefront. So, you know, maybe we want to do another voter survey prior to the next election to see where they fall on it, or maybe we don't and we just go back to the regular process for our elections. So yeah, it was interesting to see the results of the survey, but it doesn't look like it was all that popular.
Does any council members have any comment for Summer on the process or these results from the survey?
This is Ronnie Summer. I was just wondering, is the survey going to be posted on the city website just in case residents are curious at taking a look at it?
The results?
Yeah.
Yeah, we could probably post the results. The survey's been up there, so residents could go and take the survey, but we can post the results somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I'll talk with Lisa tomorrow to see where the best place is for that to be posted.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just
Kaylin.
not surprised at the results at all. I'm glad we weren't locked into it. It's not surprising.
Kaylin, I thought I heard your voice.
yes. I have a few thoughts. One question we didn't ask is, is it worth the saving if we convert the savings into a per voter amount? Is it worth it to them from not having to run 2 elections?
That's actually a really good point, Kaylin, and I don't know, I mean, we haven't done that mathematical question, but I do, we did receive the bill from Utah County, and I believe it was just either a little below or a little over 7,000 for the election.
So just some thoughts that might make it more appealing. One is that we have one of the advantages is that it eliminates the primary, but we have a very, very extremely low barrier to entry for municipal elections in the absence of a primary. So I just wonder about if we were to do ranked choice in the future, adding a petition requirement like the county has, just so that nothing too hard for someone that's plugged into the community, but maybe it would help weed out the casual candidates, the very casual candidates before they file, and making the ballot, limiting it to the serious candidates might just narrow it and make it more appealing to the general voters. Another thought is that, obviously, voter confidence in elections is a big deal these days. And I'm not clear if there are clear standards for when recalls are required in ranked choice. It seemed like as with each iteration of the vote tally, the results changed subtly. I realized the outcome was never really in doubt, but that could have been different. And so I'm not sure if there's really clear quantitative standards because it's much more complicated than a standard election. So
It is a little more complicated. There are standards that are spelled out in the code, in state code, for when you would do a recount for ranked choice voting. And we were the lucky ones that managed to hit that threshold of the 0.25% difference between candidates, which is what triggered us to have our recount. But I don't know that there's much as far as a recall. And I think a lot of these things that came up through more than just a couple cities participating this year have been shared with the legislature and possible changes to that portion of the code for, some tweaks here and there that they may not have caught first round, but now that more cities participated, there are a few more quirks that need to be ironed out.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Jason or Luke, as candidates, any thoughts on the ranked choice voting?
I was gonna say something that I saw that I think a lot of people had discontent over was Utah County hosting everybody thought that it's an election that it should be housed in-house. And while I totally understand why we had Utah County do it and they had the manpower to do it, I think that a lot of people's discontent was with that aspect of it. The people think that you're doing a vote, it's staying in the city offices, and so I don't know if that.
We did approach Grand County to run the election, the ranked choice voting election, but they did not have the software and they did not have the equipment ready for that to run that type of election. So they were just not prepared to run that for us this go around. I don't know where they'll be in a couple years, but I don't see from our results that people are, chomping at the bit to go this route again.
Right. No, I definitely could sense that and stuff. No, I kind of feel like that a lot of people voiced that they did not like it and stuff. So anyway.
I did have a lot of mixed messages. I had a lot of people that really liked it and I had a lot of people that really hated it. And there wasn't really an in between. It was, this is great and this is terrible. So this is really only my second election that I've been involved in. And so it was a great experience for me and for our office because we did get to see a little more behind the scenes than when Grand County ran our election for us in 2019. So that I feel like that was a positive of going this route, but that was just great learning, a great learning experience for us. Grand County's perfectly capable and they did a great job for us in 2019. So I have no complaints either way.
Yeah. I mean, as a candidate, which it's not all about it definitely, I think, kind of favors candidates in how they run their election and how they campaign, which isn't necessarily good or bad and stuff. But, as when you're running, I think that it was way easier to streamline a campaign doing ranked choice as opposed to having to do a preliminary, and then having to run in the fall again, or keep running. But that's not what it's about. It's about access for voters and making it easy for them to be able to vote and stuff.
And there are communities that do actually have primaries, even if they do a ranked choice voting election. So to Kaylin's point, that's another option kind of available for, cities and even counties to have when they're running elections, is that you can still have a primary. It's rare, but you can still do that.
Go ahead, Luke.
I just for me, and from what I've heard, because this was my first exposure to an election, is that without the primary, this felt very condensed and compressed. And so to a certain degree, I think it actually did prevent a little bit more exposure by the candidates into the community. From what I've heard for feedback in terms of the ranked choice voting, I think everybody found it pretty simple for the mayoral race, where there was just one seat open, but a lot of the confusion really arose from the multi-seat race, and kind of like the vote numbers like fluctuating and just like how long and drawn out it was. Because I think people are very accustomed to being able to receive the final results within a day or two, unless there is like some really small margin and a recount needs to happen. So I think kind of that deviation from the norm added some confusion and frustration to it as well. And then more so personally for me, I think I have a little bit of a frustration in the fact that the way that Utah runs ranked choice voting is not within the spirit of ranked choice voting. It's kind of done in a manner that still favors the majority. So if it's kind of devised in a manner that still favors the majority, I don't see the point in kind of doing it relative to the standard voting process. I think if they stayed within the spirit of it in terms of trying to increase the amount of representation, then I'd be a little bit more for it.
Great.
Mayor, I don't know if Kelleen's ready. I can go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Summer. That was really helpful. And yeah, I agree with Ronnie. If we could get that out there for people to see,
Sure.
that would be great. And, you know, my only comment is similar to Luke's. I think by not having the primary, it didn't allow the citizens to really get to know the candidates. It was so short. You know, it worked out for me and Jason and Luke, but I think from a getting to know the candidate perspective, having that longer period of time, I think is a much better way for people to get informed about who they're voting for. So thanks for that. All right, Helene, are we ready to go?
I'm ready, but I'm going to have to go without my slides. I got a new computer and there's some privacy setting that is above my pay grade. So I'm just going to talk to you and just share some of the findings, and then I will send you this slide deck in the email. First thing I wanted to update you on, as Summer said, there is some legislation. It's House Bill 264. It's passed through the House and is currently in the Senate, but it does correct some of the things that people found most frustrating. As you know, in a pilot project, there's always little things that come up. And one of those things is clarifying when a recount is done and what that procedure is. And that became an issue here for you guys as well as Sandy City, where there was frustration over are we having a recount, what qualifies, and that will clear that up. It also permits an extension for the canvas in case there is a recount and you're not feeling like, how do we do that? We already have a deadline in state law to do a canvas. It also modifies the provisions for trying to determine a voter's intent. Like if somebody votes for the first choice, they skip second, and then they vote 2 for third. That allows the election officials to still or vote for third, but they skip second. They still get to count their third instead of saying this ballot is invalid. So it gives the voter's intention more weight there. It also, those are the main things, is the voter's intent and when a vote is valid and the things I've told you. So anyway, 264, it seems to not have any opposition and just going through quickly. So basically just so you know, again, I was the mayor of Heber until just recently, till January. And now I'm not anymore, but I'm working with Utah Ranked Choice Voting. I used to be the director of elections during the Levitt administration. So I've done things with city government and elections, and I was helping the cities with this pilot project. We did have a survey, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that, but Y2 Analytics, you're probably familiar with them. They do a lot of surveying in the state. And some of the things that came out in Moab, out of 5 council candidates, 95% of the voters ranked at least one of those winners in their top 3 choices. And each voter ranked an average of 3.6 candidates who, so they continued to rank down their ballot. They didn't just vote for one and stop. So out of 5 council candidates, most people rated at least 3 to 4. There were 1.1% of the city council ballots had an overvote in round one. That was 21 voters. Typically, it's about 0.5%. So it was a little higher in that multi-candidate race in the city council. And that's an education process, obviously, whether you decide to do it or not. Often the first time something is new, people have to get used to the idea, and there are some mistakes. Josh Daniels estimated it was $2 per voter. I don't know if that aligns with the number you gave, but that you saved by not having the primary. So the Y2 survey, what they did is, and I know that you did your own survey, but one of the things that the Y2 survey did was to do a statistically accurate survey up to 2.6%. So the margin of error was plus or minus 2.6. They were able to get a survey sample with a model of municipal general election turnout, weighting, age, party registration, whether they're active voters, the length of their registration. And they looked at that and predicted the type of election that would be, the number of voters, the type of voters, and then they weighted the survey accordingly. So they made sure they had representation from a typical group of people that were voting in the election. So that's how they were able to come up with this very low margin of error considering statistics. We did I understand how that goes, because you put out a survey and you don't know if someone's sitting there, trying to bias the survey or not, but these guys are able to do that with a very statistically accurate sample. So just so you know, I'm going to give you a couple numbers of what the numbers came out for the whole statewide survey. And I am happy to go back and see. I don't think we had enough of a sample from the smaller cities to be able to tell you their numbers and have them be accurate. But statewide, when asked how many found it very easy, like 81% of the people said they found it either very easy or somewhat easy to vote in a ranked choice voting ballot. 90% said it was either very clear or somewhat clear, the instructions. 62% said they liked it. Now, this is one that kind of ranged, like in Salt Lake City, there were 29% more likely to say they liked it than they were in Sandy. Now, Sandy had a 51% approval rating of ranked choice voting, whereas it was 80% in Salt Lake City. So obviously that ranged in different cities. Some of it was there were groups of people that were openly opposed to ranked choice voting, and that influenced some cities, and others didn't have that. And the people who voted typically liked it. One of the questions asked was, sometimes voters will say when they're voting, they pick it's a person who's not really their favorite, but they think they have a better chance of winning. So in this survey, they asked, did you pick the person you liked that was your favorite, or did you pick someone because you had a strategic plan? And 60% said they were much more likely to vote for who they wanted, and they weren't trying to strategize and say, well, they probably won't win, so I'll vote for someone else. And that's one of the the pluses of ranked choice voting, is that it eliminates that gamesmanship. Obviously, people who did vote in ranked choice voting elections were more happy with it. People that hadn't had different preferences. If they hadn't voted in a ranked choice voting election, they were less likely to like it. And people who did vote were more likely to like it. One last issue is whether voters cared if a candidate gets a majority of voters. So 85% said that winning a majority is important when they were given some understanding of, for example, in our gubernatorial elections, here's how it works. And so when they said, how important is it to you that a candidate wins a majority? And that was very important or somewhat important, 85%. Again, those who've had a ranked choice voting experience, there were about almost 70% that said it should continue to be used overall. And this is in all of the cities that had ranked choice voting elections this year. I am so sorry about this slide presentation. I will make sure and get it to you very soon. But are there any questions I could answer for you from Utah ranked choice voting?
Questions for Kayleen? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you
that. All righty.
So much.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
evening.
You too.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda, which includes the approval of the special event permit for the 2022 car show. And we've got Dave Burscheid and John Fogg if you need to ask any questions about that. approval of 2 sets of minutes from January 25th, February 8th, and approval of the bills against the city in the amount of $225,818.42. So are there any questions, or can we go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda? Ronnie?
No, I was going to move to approve the consent agenda.
All right, motion made by Ronnie. Do we have a second? Seconded by Tawny. Any discussion, Ronnie?
No, I sent some minutes, items to Summer. Thanks as always, Summer, for edits.
You're welcome.
Tawny, any
Nope,
discussion from you?
I sent one correction to Summer too, but that's it.
Okay. Anybody else? Discussion on the consent agenda. All right, I'll call for the vote. Ronnie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Tawny,
Aye.
Luke,
Aye.
Jason,
Aye.
and Kalen.
Aye.
Unanimous, 5-0. Consent agenda is approved. Next, old business. We have, I think, Annie and Patrick Trim to discuss the update on the pickleball demos and the grant funding. So take it away,
I should
Patrick.
be joining.
There's Annie, and Patrick's on the line as well. Thank you guys for the demo. It sounded like it was good depending on who you asked. And it was great that council members went out to observe. Appreciate that. So Annie, what are you thinking? And we've got Patrick, but he's sideways. So there you go. Okay. You're muted, Annie. There you go.
Every time. Okay. So at first to start, I'd like to thank everyone who shared their feedback with us. I really enjoyed learning a lot more about pickleball. And I also really enjoyed learning the values that the community holds important for Old City Park. So since the last council update, we've continued to see constant public comment and also held the 2 demonstrations. The demonstration at Old City Park was very well attended. There's about 50 people there, and there was a lot of community discussion. And I think the overarching theme that came out of the first demonstration was it wasn't so much about the noise as it was about disturbing Old City Park. The second demonstration was at the high school courts, and it was only modestly attended by anyone other than the players. But at that demonstration, sound just seemed to be a more prominent concern. So at this point in the process, so staff, considering a lot of factors, staff is currently recommending to not continue to pursue this grant opportunity. There's a couple of factors involved. One big factor that hasn't been highlighted before is the budget and funding. The original project estimate for this was $160,000, of which half would be grant funded. With the rising supply chain costs and construction, along with now understanding more specifics of the site, our current estimate is getting closer to $300,000, if not more. So our original investment of $80,000 from the city is now looking upwards of $200,000. Another factor is that we have been talking with the Old Spanish Trail Arena, and they have had plans for pickleball for many years, but this has not been funded. So we as a city cannot transfer or use our current grant fund for courts at the arena, but they are open to applying on their own behalf in the spring cycle. And so they are willing to actively pursue this grant opportunity this spring. They wanted to make it clear that they still have a couple approvals to get through. And so it's not a done deal at this point, but they will actively pursue it. So we would like to put our efforts put our support towards their efforts. And it's kind of a little disappointing for us to forego this opportunity, but I think for me that there was 2 key takeaways. One, we want to make sure that everyone knows that the city does value pickleball as a sport. I mean, it's clear that it's building community and everyone's simply having fun out there, and we want to foster that in our park system. And the second is the community's passion for Old City Park. It's a beautiful park, but I do think it is underutilized, and with appropriate planning and public involvement, I think that it could benefit from future park improvements.
Great. Patrick, do you have any comment?
No, I just think, to piggyback off what Annie said, we do want to support Old Spanish Trail Arena and the county's efforts to get courts built out there. And I think throughout this process, we learned that was sort of one of the projects that was at the forefront of what they wanted to achieve in the next year or so. And so we thought, to avoid duplication of efforts, we could sort of help, get that whole thing kicked off with them. They've got a pretty good plot of land out there for a decent sized complex. It's pretty graded out already. And I'm a member of the Grand County Rec Special Service District. And so I've been working with them a little bit in the past on pickleball courts also. But when we learned about their motivation, we thought we could sort of partner with them to still provide courts for the community and keep the whole thing rolling.
Great. Sounds good. Questions from the council for Annie or Patrick? Ronnie?
I just want to take some responsibility because I think I was one of the first people who was hearing from residents about, I love pickleball and pickleball was growing and I didn't really know what pickleball was. So I was like, ooh, yes. So how's the pickleball going? Because I was hearing from people they wanted more pickleball. And so thanks so much, Patrick, for going out and trying to find funds for it. And thank you guys for spending all that time. I know it's really educational for me to go out and talk to people. And it's great to talk to both, the people who had concerns and the people who play. And I totally agree. It does sound like it's been really great for so many people as a community builder. And thanks so much, Annie, for saying that's something we'd like to foster. So yeah, no, I'm just interested in a council member, how we can help moving forward in a helpful and not sticking our foot in our mouth way. So just maybe let us know over time, whether we can be helpful in what you guys are looking into at Old Spanish Trail Arena, or, I know that high school is undergoing a facilities plan and the players have been having discussions with the school district in the past. I don't know if they've had recent discussions. So, and I know a lot of the players I spoke to said, oh, it'd be great to have something closer to town. So I maybe just keep us up to date. And then I guess a question I had for you guys was originally, we were going to put 80 in. And so, I think the county was going to put 40 in. So I guess time will tell, but if OSTA goes after the grant, are we thinking as a city, we'd like to contribute to that, just like they were going to contribute and help us, or is it premature for that question?
Yeah, I think it's premature for that question, but I know as an initial step, Patrick did such a great job writing on the city's grant and has offered his assistance to the county.
Great. Other questions, comments from the council?
I'd like to say same thing as Ronnie said, is thank you for going through the motions of trying to make this happen. I know it's been talked about for years and years. And so we tried it. I thought it was a great plan until we heard the comments, and then it made sense. It made sense what people were saying. And, and it also made me realize too, that kind of like what Annie was saying is that Old City Park people wanted a quiet park, and I think that it has a lot to offer with that aspect of it and stuff. So I think if anything, it also made me realize that maybe we need to have a little vision of what we want Old City Park to look like, and what its kind of future is to maintain what people want it to be. So anyway, it was a great process. I learned a lot, and I'm excited to see what happens at OSTA.
Tawny.
Yeah, I want to thank staff for the work that they put into it also. It's been a good learning experience. I sometimes get the feeling, however, that the city attempts, or we are expected to be all things to all people. We cannot possibly in a city this size have a court or a playing surface to accommodate every single kind of sport out there. We get comments from a few people who, in this instance, were in the pickleball community and who wanted courts, and we kind of charged ahead. And then we got a whole bunch of public clamor because this wasn't the right space. And even today, I had calls from people that were disappointed that this didn't go through. And we've got to do a better job as a council at assessing the programs and the projects that we ask staff to accomplish for us. And come to a place where we understand when public clamor is just public clamor and when it should be listened to. And I'm not saying that this isn't one of the cases, but I think we've got to be a little more introspective when we send our staff out to do these projects, because even though we learned a lot, some of us should have had enough time and grade to maybe pull back a little bit. So again, thank you guys for all you did.
Anybody else? Luke, Ronnie, and Kalen. Let's go with Kalen first, Ronnie, if that's okay. He hasn't spoken yet. And then Luke.
So I'll echo what the previous council member said, and thank you for your work on this. Just to dovetail on a couple comments, it seems like I'm hoping that the rec department can do some more higher level planning, both for facilities and programming, and maybe that would help create the high level framework for how the city provides for these growing demands from the community. And so I'd be curious how we can support you in doing that, if it's a funding question or a prioritization. And so maybe we can talk about that at strategic planning. And then also, this is a little while ago, the council with staff's help adopted a process for engaging the public prior to changes of use with city property. And so I'm wondering if a little introspection now would be appropriate. One thing that I wondered is if we just had a bigger sign on property that we were thinking about a change of use on, would help notify people in advance, just so that we don't end up making a decision before the neighbors really know about it. And I realize there's always going to be someone who doesn't know about it prior to our decision, but maybe we could have done better this time and could have slowed down a little before making the decision. So maybe we could just examine that process and see if we could, for public engagement, and see if we could adjust it a little bit. That's all.
Thanks, Kalen. Luke?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, Kalen kind of took the words right out of my mouth. Echoing what everybody else said, really appreciate the work that staff put in, and especially being so responsive in such short notice to the community response to us potentially moving forward with this, and trying to address the community's kind of concerns as quickly and like as adequately as possible. But yeah, I agree that I think maybe trying to figure out different mechanisms that we can employ to better inform our community members. I think we're starting to post more stuff on our like Facebook page now, since our community is so kind of involved in social media. But yeah, I think it's kind of incumbent on us to be a little bit more proactive on trying to bring the community into the conversation, because I think I've seen situations like this arise in the past where city council kind of gets feedback from all the people who are in support of it. A lot of people aren't aware that something is happening. And then once it gets passed, word spreads through the community, and staff has to double back a lot of the time and kind of move back on things. And we really need to understand that staff time is one of the most important resources that we have in terms of actually being able to get things accomplished. So once again, thank you for all of the work and everything that you guys put in.
Ronnie, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Oh yeah, just a few things that might help. I know Annie's part of this smaller group that we have working on the community visioning, and we're about to put a survey out. And so I was just thinking, Annie, I haven't had a chance to look at draft questions yet. I don't know if you have, but I was thinking, yeah, that might be something where you and Patrick have some advice on, you know, key questions or ways to formulate questions where the data from that would really kind of help moving forward. So that's maybe one way we can help you. And then kind of for the community from the vision side too. I think, there was a lot of discussion around pickleball about noise, and in the end that was less an issue for some people, but was still an issue for other people. So I'm kind of making an ask of our community that a lot of you said that noise was a concern. Sorry, I've got a talking dog. And we do really try to listen, but I kind of am making an ask of the community that, there are other people in the community who have noise asks, and it would be nice if we supported each other. And for all of you who are concerned about noise, the visioning process is another place where, you can express that quiet is a value for you in this community. And then just back to process, we heard a lot from people about, we live out at Old City Park and we're in the county, we follow the county agendas, but we don't necessarily follow the city ones. And that was kind of a blind spot, I think, that we all ended up having, because I think the process otherwise that you laid it, Annie, was really, really good. And so I'm just wondering, as we work through some looking back, like Kaylin said, at process, if there is some way that, and when we look at our vision, if there's somewhere that we as a group, when we're making decisions, can have some basic rules for ourselves, that we kind of have a cheat sheet that we look back on, like, who does this decision impact? How do they need to know, and how can we communicate to them, and when do they need to know? And I just kind of feel like if we all had a little cheat sheet, and so certainly for council, that could help us all. It's hard for one person to eyeball everybody who needs to know, but collectively as a group, if we have a reminder like that, it can help. And then we've always said this is a collective effort. Like, there are things as a city, we try to be responsive, we can try to communicate more and in different ways, but it's also a shared responsibility for the public to kind of know where to find information and to look for it. So I'm not saying in this instance, people living out at Old City Park would have known to look at a city agenda, but in general, we kind of need to help each other know where to look and how to find stuff. And then we both have to kind of step up to the plate. That was it. Thanks.
Thanks, Ronnie. The only comment that I have is there any way that we can work with the high school as well as the county?
Yeah, so we have communicated with the high school, and they are taking a step back and doing a larger facilities master plan. And they haven't started that yet, and I think it'll take about a year, and they want to address pickleball as part of that planning process.
Great. So pickleballers out there, you probably want to get a hold of the school district, the school board, and let them know how important that is to you. So, and the other question, Annie, is there anything else we need to do? It sounds like you're recommending that we're going to pull back on the grant. Is there anything that the council needs to do in that regard, or are we kind of done?
I don't think we need an official motion or anything, just moving forward.
All right. Well, thank you guys for all the work you did on this. I never thought in my wildest dreams that the first controversial issue that we'd be dealing with was pickleball, but we handled it well. And I appreciate everybody's comments out there from the community. And I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again on another issue that's just as important. So thank you.
Thanks.
Joanne?
Right. Yes, Connie.
Luke and I had a conversation last week, and I think he brought something up really, really important about this. I wish our residents would get as fired up and as worked up and excited about our crumbling sewer plants and affordable housing, or not our plant, I'm sorry, our crumbling sewer pipes and our water pipes and affordable housing. We've got a lot of hard things to deal with, and we need community support in those difficult decisions, not just the ones that are recreation related. So I thought that was pretty insightful of Luke.
Yes, and you are correct. Unfortunately, you can't see the pipes under the streets or hear them until your toilet backs up. So, but you are correct.
Sexy.
Yep, you are
just
correct.
wait, Joette, you're new. We have a movie reel of the interior of our pipes. Yeah.
Okay, I can't wait for that one.
I think we You could start a bumper sticker campaign and say Moab infrastructure is sexy.
All right, well, moving on, right to Chuck. We're talking about engineering. So next on the agenda, hotspot funding and other current projects updates. And I think that we'll be hearing about other things besides hotspot tonight. So Chuck, you're up again.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to just, Carly and I were talking and we thought it was a good opportunity to update council on the multiple projects that we have going on. We're not asking for any action tonight, but any input obviously would be welcome on any of these projects or any questions you have. So with that, I'd like to go into a presentation, Mayor. Okay. So I wanted to talk about hotspot funding and other current projects. So I've got about 6 or 7 slides, but I'll try and keep it brief, but I'm happy to answer any questions. The first I would like to talk about is dispersed parking. And if you recall, we've got essentially the Emma Boulevard, Minnie Lee portion for parking. And then we've got the downtown dispersed parking projects, all ongoing, and I'll talk about both of them. We have a next generation concept for consideration, and I'll show you that in a moment. But I'd like to say first probably that this next concept, and I included it in the packet, increased the stalls from 44 to 57, which we think is a good thing because we may end up, as you know, UDOT is stall sensitive, in terms of number of stalls. And if we can increase on Emma, maybe we can do away with a few less downtown due to other reasons that will develop. This concept maintains the driveway access for the 3 houses in the northern parking lot. I shared it with, I think it's Mr. Hubble, who said he represented those 2 other houses and that he was glad and was happy with this parking lot. I've not gotten scheduling completed with the 2 churches for their access needs, but we met with them several years ago and I've got all the contact info, and it's on my list in the very near future of getting to the churches to address their access needs. We think we've covered them in that concept, but we wanted to make sure. And unless there is an objection by council, we're going to move to construction plans and try to construct in 2022. Because our agreement with UDOT, again, says that we'll move forward. And if Emma Boulevard is one that we can get done, we believe this calendar year. So I'd like to see the way to do this. Can you see this concept drawing now?
No.
No? Okay. Sorry about that. Let me do it this way, old school way. This is now you can see it, correct?
Yep.
Oh, great. So this is Main Street or US 191. This is the new Hawk signal that's in place across the rock shops over here. This was with the long history of this, what was approved by council when we did a right-of-way exchange was a one-way in off of 191, and then one way on Emma Boulevard down to, this is the Church of Christ here, where we would then go to a two-way street because there's apartments in here who would need that access. So if you entered here on Emma Boulevard, you would exit on 400 North, because Maxine also becomes a one-way street. And the intent here is to keep people from coming off of 191 and using this as a shortcut from downtown and dumping out here by the school. So there's quite a bit of history on this, how we got here. But, and then this is the parking lot where the Emma right-of-way would be converted to parking lots here, where we'll need to show an access here if this church wants one. These are the driveways for the homes. These are the green spaces, which will serve as stormwater detention spaces. These are park strips. You know, they're not really large park strips. They're like 4 feet wide, but that's all we could fit in this right of way. But this also becomes stormwater catchments to the best of our abilities, as well as over here. And with that, the one thing that we've done to pick up the extra 13 stalls is we've added parallel parking here within the right of way, because we're back to a 50-foot right of way in here, whereas up here, I think we're at 34 feet. So there's not room for the extra stalls. But as our consultant got into the next level design, they ran it by me and I thought, yeah, why not? We could use the additional stalls, and it doesn't seem to impact. These are businesses here which do not use this for access, and the church doesn't change their access at all. So is there any, I guess I'd ask for any input on this particular project now, because we'd like to go to construction drawings unless someone in council says, oh, holy smokes, don't do that.
Council, thoughts, comments, questions? Tawny?
Yeah, Chuck, will those park strips and those other little green sections that were outlined there, will they be part of our green infrastructure?
Yes, they will be. The park strips, I can't guarantee we can get water into those, stormwater, but we're going to try. But the other basins will be basically detention basins that'll collect water runoff from the road, and rather than put them into a storm drain, we'll put them into those detention basins and help them grow some plants is the plan.
So they won't become Goat Head Alley?
As long as we maintain them, they will not be.
Okay.
That's the thing with all the green infrastructure. You know, in fairness, I'm glad you brought it up. It's a little different type of maintenance, a little higher level of maintenance, but our crews know about it, and I think they're capable of doing it.
Okay, thanks.
Kaylin?
So I'm glad to hear that you're picking up some additional stalls. And then I wondered with the northernmost parking that, or the left side of the drawing that you showed, if it was possible to have some shade trees in there. One thing we discussed during the hotspot funding group was the value of shade for the parking. Or if you thought about alternate ways to deliver that. But just if there could be, and potentially that could also, I don't know if there's room on the, if it could be part of the discussion with the church there, since they might already have better access to a water hookup.
You know, yeah, shade, we did talk about that. You're exactly right. And I don't have, our landscape architect has been focused on the downtown dispersed parking alternatives, the amenities down there. And we haven't spent much time on this, but if we're able to get the irrigation system in and can afford it, and it's within the budget, I don't see any reason why we couldn't have shade trees in here and potentially here as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I follow you, Kaylin, right?
Yes, and also potentially at the northern end of that, I mean, I guess it's not northern, it's eastern end of that northern parking lot.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll look at all of them actually to see what we can come up with. And yeah, I think those spaces are large enough. Maybe this one even, I'm not quite sure about that one.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to see about water availability for an irrigation system, because they'll need irrigated.
Yep.
At least for a short while, they'll need it. First couple of years, it's my understanding.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Ronnie?
Oh, just to support Kalen and his request for shade, because from the beginning of this whole thing, we always said we wanted the space to serve locals, and that kind of works for some people with the parking. I don't know if it'll serve everyone, but also, you know, concerns about heat island effect, and you know, that bike trail is going to be pretty hot. So we had always asked about vegetation, you know, on that eastern side along, you know, whether it was native plants, and certainly if something taller that can provide shade for pedestrians and cyclists. That would be nice. I did have a question. I mean, obviously we have more business downtown now than we do in this area. And that's not to say, you know, these empty lots aren't going to develop, but what's the logic about adding more spaces here and potentially taking away spaces in the downtown area? Because it seems like we should almost be going the other direction, but I might be missing something.
Yeah, and maybe I didn't make it clear. I'm not suggesting we go in and take away downtown spaces, but as a function of the more complex geometry downtown and more complex potential conflicts, utilities, the fact that we're trying to figure out how to take care of some of these delivery trucks, we may need to come up with the less stalls than what was on the original approved concept designs. And so if that's the case, and I'm seeing indications that that may be the case, then having these extra 13 stalls, we can make the case to UDOT, hey, we lost some over here because of, we couldn't make it work with and still provide certain services, but we picked up a few over here. I'm not saying, oh yeah, we pick it up here and then forget downtown. It's that I see that there's a lot more conflicts. It's a lot more complex in those downtown streets than it is here in Emma. And with our consultants' other eye, they saw an opportunity to create a few more. And I think we should take advantage of that. My recommendation is we take advantage of that. I don't see the negatives to it in terms of adjoining property owners or anything.
Okay, cool. And then the final question was, I know there's a whole timeline for this and I can't always remember it. So for people who are kind of interested in when next design or opportunity for input might come, just remind me, when is that?
Well, for Emma Boulevard, this is the main opportunity. I'm going to meet with the churches, see where they want their driveways. And we've met, they're aware in the past, I've met with them multiple times. And for this part of Emma Boulevard, we were just going to go to construction plans and get this done this year, unless council says, holy smokes. The downtown parking, I'd like to talk about that in a moment. I've got some of that information after we talk about Emma, if that's okay with you.
Yep, thanks.
Okay.
Luke or Jason, any comments or questions? Jason.
Yeah, so who are we serving with this parking lot? What's our goal as to who we're providing parking spots for?
The businesses, let me good question.
So
I'm going to share screen again. Maybe. Go ahead, Jason.
No, I was just going to say, like, my fear is, my worry is that we have 57 stalls, people who are going to the elementary school are going to park in the school parking lot, there's not a lot of businesses there yet, so maybe I guess we are going to the future, which I think is great and stuff. But my only concern is that are we creating a place for people to camp, on this dead end section, by there, and are we just creating spaces for non-locals to congregate, and I worry about the cost to the local taxpayers and what local taxpayers are getting out of it, and hopefully it's something that helps them. So that's my only fear or curiosity is, it's a beautiful project, but who are we serving with it?
Yeah, so and the previous council members can correct me if you remember it differently, but we're serving those businesses along 191 that lost their parking for real time now. So when the widening came through, there's no parking along 191. So some of the businesses out there lost their on-street parking.
So like Century 21, who I've talked to a couple of ladies there, and they, kind of gave me the rundown on it, stuff like they lost their parking, like out in front.
Yep.
Right there.
Right.
But you have these parkings that have been created in the back, yet if they were to walk around the side, like, is there access to Main Street where people aren't having to, walk a quarter of a mile, in a loop to get to where they were going, like Maverick or Century 21 or Poison Spider, there's no access. They still have to walk all the way around.
So here's a sidewalk,
Yeah,
and they can go and walk down this sidewalk.
which is still probably 200 or 300 yards, right?
Yeah, it is. And then there's this right here, which these that we added couldn't be any closer. And I guess I would just say that over the 3 years we've been working on this.
No, I know.
Yeah, no, and I'm not trying to, I'm saying that the question of can we get through here to the businesses, the property owners here have said, yes, you local folks come talk to me and I'm open to a pedestrian easement through there, because right now they walk through there, but there's no easements.
Yeah.
So I think that there's an opportunity to do that if the local people talk to them. I mean, we've never gotten engaged and tried to procure easements through there. I suppose we could. And then the other thing is on the overnight stuff, and that's a concern that as we have been developing this, the chief and I previously had, or the previous one of the city managers, we had talked about gating this. We're certainly going to sign it, no overnight parking in that. But we talked about gating this and this as part of the either police or parks, but that's all changed now. Someone could open the gate and close the gate.
All right.
Like they do the bathrooms. And Annie would have to correct me on if that's changed. But it used to be we would lock the public bathrooms and open the public bathrooms, in the morning. And that was going to be on that route, they would come and open the gate here. And we wouldn't have gates down here, but for this parking lot, we'd have a gate. And most of the people don't use this back driveway. They use their front driveway, but we'd have to figure out if that was an issue for them. But I think they'd be happy to have a gate here. So anyway, that's
yeah, that was my only questions on, and I know it all happened before, my time. I was just trying to.
Yeah, no, those are legit questions, and I'm trying to
wait till the next one. Wait till the roundabout.
Yeah.
I know.
Anyway,
oh, I know.
That's all I
have. I know.
Jason, anything else?
No, that's it.
Luke, do you have any comment?
No.
Okay. All right. Chuck, so
All
did
right.
you get the answer to your question? It sounds like trees, gate, good to
That's
go.
what I heard too.
Okay.
And I'll follow up with the churches.
Okay. Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Yeah. Back in the PowerPoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
Downtown dispersed parking. So this is the 9 streets downtown dispersed parking. And in January, I believe it was, we held a workshop with our consultant team about various elements of the amenities, as well as the engineering elements of it. And the status report now is they're working on 30% plans. But at this point, we're planning to have an alternatives workshop the end of March or early April. And by that, I mean that our consultant will want to come with these are the various treatments and looks that they've considered and think are appropriate for the downtown area. And we'd like to meet with council and or whatever stakeholders we feel are appropriate. There's I could say every business owner along those streets, and we'd be happy to invite them. But I don't know if that's what you think we should do or not. I appreciate council input on the stakeholders, how you want to handle the stakeholders. I mean, we know we have to do it. When Kaylin and I think you'll remember that, during the hot spot, we had a member of the Downtown Business Alliance, I think they were called, Kaylin. I may have that backwards.
Yes.
On the hotspot committee. But we want to have that prior to the 30% plans, just to make sure that council has an opportunity to provide input as well as other stakeholders on what you'd like to see. I mean, I know about the trees and, we'll have an idea on lights and we'll have an idea on themes and, and one of the things is, we're not locked into making one theme for all of downtown unless council says that's what you want. I mean, we could have different themes on different streets, as an example. It might cost a little more just because a contractor, but it might not cost a lot more. And we expect those 30% plans in May. This is not as straightforward as Emma, and it's going to take longer. I'm not sure that we'll see any meaningful construction this calendar year. I was hoping to, and I'm not saying we won't, but because the process needs to take, I think, and I think council agrees with me, needs to take longer on the amenities and on what we're doing downtown, because it's such a big change that we want to give it the time it needs to do it as correctly as we can. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't have any new drawings for this one like I did for Emma.
Questions from the council, particularly on stakeholders? Ronnie.
I mean, I think we have all learned, or we may not all share agreement about this, but I always think more input is better at the front end, and making it open. So as far as I'm concerned, it should be open to anybody and everyone, but certainly should involve the Chamber, the Downtown Business Alliance, people in our community with expertise in some of the facets of this that we're dealing with. So everything from landscaping to lighting. And I mean, we know who some of those experts are in town. Some of them are affiliated with the university. Some of them have, experience with landscaping or the green infrastructure. But all of those people collectively have different experiences and kind of know what works here. But, and I think I mentioned in the last meeting that we had with the consultants that you have an opportunity. I mean, artists can't do anything for free, but we do have a very vibrant art community, and you could reach out to the Arts Council or someone else to let artists know about it, because they have a lot of good ideas and cost-saving ideas sometimes too. But just please don't expect them to work for free, because they got to eat like everybody else. That was it.
Chuck, would you mind taking this down for a minute so I could see everybody? Who else? Well, Tawny?
I think that we probably need to make a concerted effort. I don't know how that looks, to involve any of the businesses that will be impacted, because not all of them belong to the chamber, and not all of them belong to the other, whatever the other group was. I think there are plenty, and I'm thinking right along Center Street, because that's where our business is. I know they're not all members of the chamber, so, and I am guessing that a few of them, or more than a few of them, aren't following this like some other people are. So I think just reaching out to those small businesses that may not have the involvement in the community that other people do is really, really important.
So at a minimum, what we would do is we would give a flyer at the very least, or information to each business along those streets. Yeah, we'll do that as part of it. If that'll help at least alert those businesses directly in front of any changes to the parking. And then any other like Ronnie's comments were good ones too. We'll do that at a minimum. We were going to do that already. I just was wanting to know what other, if you have other thoughts too.
Well, the flyering the businesses, and then obviously we've got some residents on some of those streets too. So I mean, we just include them. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I meant all the property owners, but yeah, you're right there. There's not a lot of residents, but there's some.
Right. Yeah. Kaylin?
Right. Yeah, so I did watch the meeting that I missed when you workshopped this. Thank you all for attending that. And I have emailed with Chuck a little bit about this. One thing that I think we may not have considered as thoroughly when the concept design was happening last year was how to accommodate deliveries. So I think that might be a focus for outreach for businesses, especially food service that has weekly deliveries or more often. and how that is accommodated gracefully. And I sent Chuck an idea, but maybe the business owners would have more specific information about their needs and what might work or might not. Another thing that I wondered about, going back to citizens not following what we're doing with the same passion that we do, and being surprised after we make decisions, is the idea of maybe doing some on-the-ground prototyping as a way of generating reaction and hopefully information. I'm not sure how practical it is, and it would cost a little money, but like taking a block and going ahead and striping it as we intend the parking to be, and using some movable barriers, either planters or Jersey barriers, and giving some people some preview of what we're going to do. And then there'll be less shock, hopefully more awe when it actually gets built.
Well, just Caitlin, if you don't mind, just to piggyback on that, when we did the back end parking, this can't be changed. I mean, what we're doing this time is like permanent, right? I mean, if people don't like it, we can't go back to the way that it was before. So I think that's a really good point, to let people know this is what it's going to be. Now's your time to make your comments.
Yeah, Caitlin, that's a good point too about the showing what they can. And our consultant has already done they sent me pictures today of, they laid it out in their parking lot, the stalls and that, and had vehicles driving through. And I think it's a good idea for us all to be in the visualize it better. So we're doing that. And I forgot to mention, Lisa's involved with this public outreach, and our consultant has public outreach. So when I said at a minimum we'll do the flyers, we're going to do a lot more than that. So we'll work with Lisa to engage stakeholders and the public on this.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a big public campaign, I think.
It's a big project.
Yeah. Jason, Luke, comments from either one of you? All right.
I like what Caitlin said. I think that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't thought about delivery trucks.
Well, I think what we did with the dark skylights is really good. I mean, the one on 4th East and 300 South in front of the Beerscheid building, there's a sign in front of it that says, "Look up." I mean, I thought that was pretty effective. As I looked up.
What did you see when you looked up?
A light. It was daytime, so I didn't see where the light focused.
Okay.
I kept hearing comments about how ugly those lights were, and I was like, it looks like a street light. It's not. I don't think it's ugly.
Good. All right, Chuck, did you get your questions answered on
I did.
that one? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Transit. So another hotspot funding project is the transit shuttle pilot. And we have a system name now. It's the Moab Area Transit, or if you want to call it the MAT, you could. It's been we have been recognized by UDOT as a transit entity. If you'll recall, when we came to council to have you adopt all those policies for drug-free workplace and such to satisfy federal rules, that was effective. That's what allowed us to get certified or recognized as a transit entity. We now have that standing, and we're recognized as a transit provider in the state. There are potential ARPA funds available for this. And UDOT has worked with us to try and get those funds. And on the next council meeting, March 8th, we'd like to have an agenda for action to have an ARPA, a level of service decision. And we'll give you agenda summaries and all that, but essentially what it is UDOT has offered up some federal transit authority money that would allow us to expand the service in year 1 and 2. And by that, what I mean is potentially we were going to do year 1 just the micro transit, which is, the on-demand service, see how it went. And then year 2, that original budget had us going into a fixed route as well, which meant the essentially bus stops, with a larger van up and down Main Street primarily. But with the ARPA money, we could expand the service, or maybe there's a way to lower our local commitment, though I'm not sure about that. We'll try and get an answer on that. But anyway, on the next council meeting, we want to have, Carly and I have talked about having this on an agenda because of that ARPA money. We need some council direction on that. And then assuming a council decision on the 8th, then we'll advertise the RFP for the vendor by the end of March or early April. We've got that in pretty good shape. It's just going to be a function of, do we want to use the ARPA money to increase the level of service, meaning ridership, potentially, availability of the shuttles earlier. Any questions on that? Oops.
Yeah, I had a question for you on it. I've had a few discussions with people lately about it, and one of the things that came up with it was someone had kind of mentioned to me, like, hey, I really wish the city or whoever is doing this would charge for it. And I said, well, I think that the grant that we got or whatever said that you couldn't charge. Is that correct? That it had to be?
No, it doesn't have to be. It was essentially a hotspot committee recommendation, and I believe council decision to put together the economic pro forma with a no funding from ridership, a no fee ridership. But I don't recall it being a part of the agreements. No.
Okay, that's kind of what I understood, because someone had brought it up, like that. They're like, well, I hope that it would be nice if it was for like locals trying to get to work or or to get around town, that it they could see that it being no charge. But then when you have tourists who are trying to get from a hotel to a restaurant or something, then they can call up, are they taking business opportunities away from people who have Ubers or Lyfts, and so there's like some concerns with that how that process goes, that it could hurt a portion of people trying to make a living, even though it's pretty small in Moab. That by offering it at no cost, that it could hurt some people trying to make a living. So that was my only feedback that I heard, that I was like, yeah, it does make sense. That could be concerning.
Yeah, that's a council decision on the fees.
Isn't there an option to at some point that we would charge fees, and the idea is to just get people used to it and seeing how it works, and then look at the fee route?
That's what the original pro forma was based on. That, yes, year 1 and probably year 2, no fee, and then evaluate it in year 2 or year 3 to see if the city wanted or needed the money, or evaluate the program as we went. Yeah, you're exactly right. That's the original economic pro forma was based upon that.
Okay.
Any other questions on the transit? The MAT. All right, Chuck, what's up next? Are we at the roundabout yet?
We're close. We're very close. We are at the roundabout. 400 North Roundabout. We have the next level concept design, which was in the packet, and I'll look at that in a second and answer any questions you have or explain it. And we are scheduled at this point to have a public hearing the week of March 21st. And what we anticipate is having that public hearing at the Swanee Park at the gazebo. And some of you may recall when we did the 100 West project, that's what we did. And we had a decent turnout there because there's electricity and we've done that. But if we're still in COVID mode, we might have to do it by Zoom, but hopefully by the week of March 21st. And because this is a federal project, we'll have a court recorder there doing a transcription to record everybody's comments. And then they'll have to be addressed in the NEPA document that's being developed. And then I wanted to share my screen again. You probably aren't seeing that yet. Can you see the roundabout now?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the next level concept design. This is sized so that school buses can make it through it. Should be pretty easily. Our school bus carrying a boat trailer should be able to make it through there. Obviously, regular passenger cars and vehicles can. This is a raised barrier median. So this is where pedestrian and school kids can cross. We anticipate having the rapid fire flashing blinkers here so that pedestrians can push this blinker and let traffic know to stop. If you've been in Junction, there's quite a few of those over there. Same down here is another treatment, raised curb pedestrian refuge here in the middle. And finally over here, the realignment, we've met with the mortuary, and we think that they'd be satisfied with this design. It requires acquisition of about 400 feet of right of way right here. And as we've shown in all the drawings, it does indeed require the one tree to be removed here in the corner of the park. And per our city code, we have done the measurements. We would replace that with 25 trees as part of the project costs. Not to speak for Annie, but we've spoken with Annie about this, and she's okay with that. Talked with her maintenance people because she thinks that it makes sense to me. The 25 trees we could be used don't have to be used here in Swanee Park. There's about 60 trees now, between 50 and 60 trees now there. They could be used on city properties anywhere in the city as part of the project. And then again, we would be taking care of the drainage issue right now where the water comes out and there's the big dip crossing, for lack of a better word, and the water winds its way down there. We would pipe it underneath the road, bring it up to the channel, put it into that existing channel, and then out. And we have a concept for making this into stormwater infiltration area, but I haven't run that by Annie yet, because it's the park. But that's an opportunity there if she and the council are interested in that. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Chuck, is this the same size as the roundabout at Arches? Is it the same dimensions?
This is 130 feet across here. I don't know if it's the same size. Each roundabout actually gets, like the one out by the golf course is miniature, and you couldn't run any of those vehicles through there. This might be close to it. And what I can't remember, Mayor, is that a 2-lane? See, this is a 1 lane around the roundabout.
It's 1 lane.
It's 1 lane, yeah.
Yeah.
So it may well be similar to that one. I could go get some measurements and give you a better answer.
I'll follow up since I'm in contact with the Park Service. I can find out.
Okay. Yeah, and then the green areas here represent potential green infrastructure opportunities to take care of stormwater and such in these areas, which we would design into it.
Kaylin, do you have your hand up?
I do. Do you know what speed the roundabout was designed for, Chuck?
15 miles an hour, I believe.
Okay. Do you know if it could be, if it were slower, if it could be smaller?
Could be. We could post it lower. I think that it'll be pretty slow speed, but I think we could post it lower than 15 if we wanted to.
Okay. Or I just wondered if it would be safer if those intersections would be safer if it were slower. It seems like that's one of the benefits of full stop intersections and the crosswalks.
Yeah, I think this is a much safer design than that existing condition out there or the previous design conditions, because we take care of bicycles and we provide the opportunity for stopping traffic if need be for kids to cross, for pedestrians to cross. But lower speed is good, and roundabouts in their general nature lower the speeds.
Yep.
They should.
Okay. And then I was wondering if those, how useful having the full center turn lane is, or if that could be partially boulevarded, or it could be overflow parking for park events. I'm just not sure how useful it is just having the full no, you can't see my cursor. The middle lane, the middle turn lane for these streets. If that's what it is.
I'm sorry, Kaylin, I'm not, you mean up here?
Yeah, there and on 100 West.
Oh, okay, I guess I understand what you're saying. I think we need it up here because of the turn movements in and out of there. But on 100 West, I mean, you make a good point. We don't really turn any left turn. There's nowhere to turn into there. So what are you suggesting?
Well, there may be select driveways on the east side of the street, but I just, and it seems like it'd be nice for people to be able to pull U's there, but I'm not sure that it's necessary along the full length of the street. So I wonder if there could be some boulevarding of it, just to improve the aesthetics. Or if it could be used for parking for big park events.
You mean park in the middle?
Yeah. Like in Telluride, for example.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting concept. I think I'd have to look and see what we tie into down here. But yeah, certainly that's an opportunity for events to park in the middle if that's something we wanted to do. Those will be, I think these are 14 feet wide, typically these center turn lanes. I don't see the dimension on here. But then you'd want to stop when you start going into the turn for the roundabout.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so I wonder if on the approach to the roundabout, if that could be a divider with plantings or green infrastructure.
Oh, a turn, yeah, sure, it could be. You mean to put a median in here, raised?
Yeah.
A median? We could, if there's money for it, we certainly could.
Right, if it's not effectively going to be used for vehicle uses.
No, it's not. It's not. And as the project moves forward, we'll get cost estimates on the project. Right now, we think we're bumping up against the project budget. But yeah, that use could be used for putting in vegetation there. Again, I think we need to keep this the way it is for the turning movements. But on this side, we could certainly evaluate that.
Okay, great.
Anything else, Kaylin?
That's it.
Tawny?
Yeah, Chuck, you mentioned that they're on the north side of 400 North. that some of that green infrastructure was going to be used to help convey stormwater. Is it going to lessen that river that flows in front of the elementary school when we get those big storm events?
Not in the big storm events. Honestly, it won't, because those are coming from the highway. Most of the flows that are those flooding problems down here, and we spent a lot of time on them this last summer coming up with solutions, and our stormwater management plan has a $700,000 solution for it to put in real storm drains down here, you know, down 400 north. But in the smaller storms, I think this would help, Tawny.
Okay.
But in the very large storms, typically what happens, it's one of the drawbacks of green infrastructure sometimes is and actually for storm drain systems in general, is they get overwhelmed in the big floods. We don't design them for 100-year floods. Typically, public infrastructure gets designed for the 10-year. And when those 25 or 50-year events or 100-year events come along, everything gets flooded out. So,
okay, I thought it was too much to hope for, but
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Excuse me, I just started coughing. Jason, do you have something you'd like to add?
Sure. I talked to to Merle at the mortuary, and he had concerns about that they pull their hearse up on that one side on the 400 north side. Are they still going to be that they wouldn't have access to getting that out, or it was going to be really tough for them to get it out of that intersection?
Do you know when you talked to him, Jason?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Mark met with him, and so he's seen this. Mark went and met with Merle with this and an earlier version of this, and we took his input and modified it. And, you know, I don't have it in writing, and I don't want to, but my belief is coming away from the meeting, he could live with it. That's what he said. That's my belief, is that he could live with it, because that's been a key element of the design. Absolutely. I mean, we went out there with our whole consultant team, and he was good enough to spend probably 45 minutes with us, and we walked this whole thing and came up with what we thought was a viable solution from a traffic standpoint and for him. And I think he's okay with it.
Okay. And then he's going from 2 entrances just to 1 entrance.
That's right. And we're going to design that and build that big entrance for him, because that's in public right of way as part of the project.
Okay. What about the dip to the south? Is that going to go away?
Yeah, the dip goes away. That's what these are pipes. That's what those are pipes. It'll get that dip will be no more.
Okay. All right. And then I guess, yeah, my only other question or concern is that we've already been getting a lot of pushback on that tree, you know, and I think that but I don't know. We got to get ready for that. So hopefully people will be happy with. I personally, I hate to see that tree go as well, and it's a beautiful tree. So, but I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I understand. And we've tried to be upfront with everyone all along that was.
All right.
We tried to redesign around it. If we chose to not satisfy the larger vehicles that go through there, we could maybe put in a mini roundabout, but that doesn't achieve the transportation issues we're trying to solve here, those intersection issues. And just one other thing, when we do the Emma Boulevard improvements up that we talked about earlier, there will be more traffic coming out here. So this roundabout would definitely be a better scenario than where it is now. I just realized that the other day. But,
well, you know, and I kind of wonder too, you know, you're talking about like buses with trailers, you know, and stuff. You know, I see the school buses, you know, but then, you know, buses and trailers, I don't know if is there still a whole bunch of that going on down there? Anyway.
Yeah, well, when we did the way it's designed now, about 3 years ago, we had one of the river companies came in and said they couldn't make the turn, and then they actually could make the turn. And so and the school bus driver said, oh, they didn't think they could make the turn, but then they were able to make the turn. So I guess we took that experience and said, okay, we want to make sure that this will satisfy those uses, because that company said, yeah, we run our buses with boat trailers here to get over to 500 West.
Right. All right. Well, yeah, and that's what I was probably thinking, that was probably Canyon Voyages, which is gone, which isn't accessing that road anymore.
Right.
So
I don't know who it was.
And then the other company that would have been Western River Expeditions, and they're not accessing that road anymore, So kind of the traffic pattern with that sort of stuff has changed over the years, where it might not be an issue, and stuff with that.
Then we just need to satisfy the school buses would probably be the biggest vehicle.
Yeah.
Through there.
And what's going to go in the middle? Art, a statue?
Whatever council wants to put in there.
A statue.
I think there's been talk about planting plants in there. I thought I heard that somewhere.
It's all open for whatever you would like, whether it's plants or they actually, in roundabouts, you want something in the middle so that people don't drive across it.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. All right, that was it. That's my questions.
Tawny?
When they put in the roundabout up by the golf course, they planted all kinds of beautiful plants in it, and it hasn't been maintained and cared for, and it's just dirt now. So
right,
we have to think really hard before we do that.
What's interesting, Tawny, that I've learned is that because we have such a robust park system in Moab, our parks department takes care of the areas where we have the park strips with irrigated stuff that the city maintains, not the ones that the residents maintain. Like Aggie Boulevard, what we did up there, they maintain that. And I think the parks department, if we went vegetative here, would be the ones who would maintain that. And I don't know that the county has a parks department to maintain.
They don't.
Roundabout.
Well, I spoke too fast. They have a facilities department versus a parks department, and but that doesn't fall under their umbrella exactly.
Who else has questions about the roundabout? I know we're having a public hearing in a month. And I think at that time, we're going to get a lot of questions, a lot of comments that we're going to have to address. So, and I know the tree's a big deal to everybody. So if there aren't any other questions, there's going to be more. What's the timeline on this, Chuck?
It'll be, right now, it's the week of March 21st. I'm working for the public hearing. Yeah, and I'm working with Lisa and our consultant to figure out which day and what the time will be. So I suspect either by the end of this week or early next, we'll have a date and a time for the public hearing, and then we'll be advertising it. We want people to come out.
And then what's the timeline on construction?
So because we have, in all likelihood, it wouldn't start until late fall because of the process. Because again, this is the federal dollars. This is the feds running this project for us with our participation of 7.62%. And construction probably wouldn't happen till late fall. We're still trying to just, phase it out and see if that makes sense, or does it make sense to not do winter work and put it off till the following spring, because we'll want to phase it with other projects, that are potentially under construction.
Right.
We're always looking at, not having too much going on in one area of town. So, but as early as the fall, but could be the following spring.
So what if there's changes to the design? Is that going to be possible based on the outcome of the public hearing and council's input?
It depends what kind of changes you want to make. I mean, the answer is if it's a roundabout that meets UDOT standards, I think changes could occur, yes. If there's no roundabout and go back to what we were doing, then the project just dies. And we have to just pay back the money that they've spent on the consultants.
Okay. All right. Tani, yes.
Okay, this is probably a dumb question. Is there any possibility we can move that tree, or is it just too big to move?
Too big.
We haven't gotten a definitive answer on that, but we've asked the question, and the initial response we got was that it's too big to move. But I'm not prepared to say it's absolutely not doable. I haven't gotten that far, but we're asking the question.
It is a cottonwood, right, Chuck?
It's a sycamore.
A sycamore?
Yeah.
And when they get old, they die from the inside out.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yes. My understanding.
Okay. Because in my neighborhood, we have several of those big sycamores that we have to take care of. And they're costly. And when the wind gets a hold of them and they blow over, they're expensive. And I didn't realize that to take that one out, we actually planted 25. So I think that's something to think about and something to put out to the public.
Yep.
Yeah, our city code kind of got forgotten for whatever reason, for a couple of years in the past, that portion of it. But within the last 2 years, staff has become aware that there is a tree replacement ordinance in place. And we went out and measured that tree. It's a function of the diameter of the tree, how many trees replace it. And that's why it's so many trees. And UDOT is aware of that. And they know that since it's in the city code, that's a legitimate project cost.
Great. All right. Anything else? I can't see everybody. Let's see. Ronnie or Luke, do you have any comments? Okay. Let's move on to the rest of your projects updates. So much for 20 or 15 or 20 minutes, Chuck.
I can stop if you'd like me to.
No, this is important.
Okay. You can see and we may be on to easier ones now. I hope Mill Creek Waterline Improvement Project, it's moving forward. We are behind schedule due to the materials delay, and we've reevaluated how we're going to get across the Mill Creek Bridge. And I think it's a real positive. We don't think we're going to have to stop both lanes of traffic. We'd probably keep both lanes of traffic open while they do that month's worth of work there. So we think that's of real value. We think that the work on the roads will be done by May. There'll still be some work going on up at the water tank, the powerhouse tank. And then the other thing is we know that intersection of 400 East and Mill Creek Drive is a very busy intersection, and it's going to get busier. So barring the weather being a problem, like if this storm we're supposed to have tonight extends too far in the future, on Thursday morning, we're going to start doing going into that 600 feet of trench, 400 along 400 East, and then 200 along Mill Creek. And we're going to put in a cold mix temporary patch over those trenches, so we won't have the dirt trenches there until the end of the project, if you follow me. Mm-hmm. And we think that's a good one because of the traffic volumes and the turning movements there. So hopefully, by the close of business Friday, that 600 feet will be done. And then we're not going to probably do temporary patching on the whole project because it just gets too expensive. It wasn't bid into it. We may do the same thing up at Sand Flats once we're done with that bridge work for like 300 feet or something like that a month from now. Unless there's any questions on that, I'll keep moving.
Yeah, keep going.
The 400 East Bridge widening, The survey and the geotech is complete. You might have seen the drill rig out there a couple of weeks ago, working on the preliminary design. That one, we anticipate being ready for construction this year. So potentially we could have the 400 East bridge widening, and then the Emma Boulevard, which different sides of town, different traffic patterns. In fact, Emma is almost no traffic pattern because it's building a new road. Well facility, we only had one potential general come to our pre-bid. So we're probably gonna have to rebid that project, and that's building the well house and bringing well 12 up to operational situation right now. We're done with the drilling. It's capped off. This is just to come in and put in the well house and the pumps and bring it online. But we didn't have contractors show up. They're all busy these days and they're having a hard time getting help. Unified Transportation Master Plan, working paper 2 is completed. We had our technical advisory committee review that last week. We've ended up with 20 active transportation projects, 13 roadway projects, 3 parking projects, and 2 transit projects as a result of all the community input, stakeholder input, staff and technical advisory committee input. And the draft plan is the next milestone coming up. And the next public meeting is going to be somewhere near the end of May or early June. And we want to make sure that even if we're extending that schedule a little bit, we think it's valuable to make sure we have the public input and circle back with them. And then final plan sometime end of the summer, into the fall. But it's been moving forward. The Pack Creek Pedestrian Bridge, this is the last project. Want to give you an update on. This is the one over by the Episcopal Church. We have a signed contract with a consultant. They started January 20th. They've been working on the project. They had to do a survey. It's completed. They've started an analysis. I got an update from them today. We expect the design to be completed in May or June. Construction's possible this year. One thing I want to give you the heads up on is that because it's the riparian area on Pack Creek, we're going to have to get a stream alteration permit, and our consultant is contracted to do that. And they need to do a little bit more engineering before they can submit that. And actually, we submit it, but they'll prepare the application. And then there's a chance that we won't be able to do work there June, July, and August, but we don't know that yet because of yellow-billed cuckoo mating season. That's what we had to do when we did the last pedestrian bridge down by Zach's parking lot. And then the other thing is they're looking at 2 things, and I'll be back to council with this. But just quick heads up. We're looking at 2 alternatives for the crossing. One is like a box culvert, if you know what I mean, a concrete box culvert. And then the other is a steel truss bridge. They're not going to be 100-year design. The steel truss bridge, preliminarily, it looks like we can get the 10-year design in, but in greater than 100-year or greater than 10-year flows, it gets inundated. And I think we all know that, but that's what's happening, and that's what we kind of anticipate is going to happen. But we'll come back with you, give you an update on as this moves forward. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yellow-billed cuckoo.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to ask my birding friends about that one. I don't even think they know they live down there. Kaylin.
So with the UTP, my understanding from the work plan is that in task 6 was consideration of innovative alternatives and strategies. And so I'm wondering if in addition to specific physical projects, they're also working on recommendations regarding like bigger policy changes that we might.
And you're exactly right. I should have put on there. I'm sorry, did I interrupt you, or was that your question, Kaylin?
That was my question.
Yeah, there's besides projects, there is a policy recommendations section. So, complete streets is in there. ITS is in there. We have a more robust policy section that covers, I think, things that you're talking about there. And I just didn't put it on here tonight. I got in a hurry.
Okay, great, thanks. That's all.
Connie?
I don't think I had anything. I think I was thinking out loud or something.
Anybody else questions for Chuck on these projects that he just went through? Okay, very good. Thanks, Chuck. That was very informative. I don't know if council has any other projects that they're aware of that they would like us to have staff report to us, but that was very thorough and it was good for those of us that are new to know exactly what's going on. So thanks so much, and
You're
keep us
welcome.
posted as things develop. And more to come on all of these projects, I'm sure.
Yes. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We've got 3 new business items, and Corey's going to join us on these items. They should be very quick. And I'm just going to turn the time over to Corey. He's going to give us a really brief rundown on each of these items, and we'll have to vote on each of them individually to grant approval of the resolutions. So Corey.
Great, thank you so much. I missed a little bit of that introduction as I was coming online, and we're going to do each of these items individually as far as the updates, or do you want them all at once and then they'll be voted on individually?
Let's do them individually and vote on them individually. I think
Okay.
that's probably cleaner.
Perfect. That may give me time. The computer surface that we're working with wouldn't load all the PDFs all at once, so that might give me an opportunity to actually get them loaded.
Okay.
What I'm sharing here is the vicinity map, which was shared in the packet for 450 Mill Creek minor subdivision. What this is looking at is the minor subdivision of the lot 1, I believe, of the Wild Goat minor subdivision. So what was originally the larger original parcel stretching the length from Mill Creek down to the floodway for Mill Creek was divided off 2019, and now the current property owner wanting to additionally divide that existing lot into a 1A and a 1B. So there is an existing property here. Through the process of staff review, we've established that there is a sewer line that does come out from that structure there to Mill Creek. That's been accommodated for with that 10-foot wide and then increasing shared utility easement for that particular sewer line to ensure that any development on that property does not interfere with the established infrastructure there. So these lots, while they are a unique shape, they meet the frontage requirements for our zoning lots within the zoning code. And then the overall square footage is fairly ample. In this zone, we require 5,000 square feet per lot. So lot 1 is coming in at 12,000 square feet. So over double what is required. And then same thing for lot 1B as 13. So within the minor subdivision application process, we have basically 2 types of subdivisions that we process. One being minor, which is 5 lots or less, and then major subdivisions, which is, of course, 6 and up. The reason for that is minor divisions like this are in the field of what we kind of consider as a permitted amendment, by kind of permitted by right amendment to those properties, whereas a major subdivision is obviously the development of a neighborhood type community. So advanced review and submittal materials are required in those majors, whereas in the minor subdivision, we're really just ensuring that the lot components are correct, and then ensure that the staff signatures are included in the plat. Mayor's asked that we just kind of profile what that is. So moving forward with this new council, we're going to see a number of minor subdivisions that often come in. Major subdivisions are a little bit more rare as they are larger developments. So that really is just a quick overview. I'd certainly be open to answering any questions, but turning it back to council and the mayor.
Questions for Corey on this minor subdivision? If not, I'll ask for a motion to approve Resolution 01-2022, approving 450 Mill Creek Drive minor subdivision of property located at 450 Mill Creek Drive in Moab, Utah. Motion, Tawny.
I move that the Moab City Council approve Resolution 01-2022, a resolution approving the 450 Mill Creek Drive minor subdivision property located at 450 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, thanks, Ronnie. Any discussion, Tawny?
No, but Norman and I drove by this the other day, and there's a sign out in front of it on Mill Creek Drive that says Wild Goat Burrow, and we both laughed because we didn't know that goats lived in burrows.
Ronnie, any comments, discussion? Anybody else? All right.
I think I might need to recuse myself from this because I think this came in front of me when I was still on the planning commission.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so Luke will recuse himself from this vote, and I'm going to call for the vote. Tawny, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Okay, Luke recuses. That's all in favor 4-1 with 1 abstention. Passes. Next.
All right, on to the Auburn townhomes lot consolidation. So this is why we are dealing with 2 lots, a different capacity where we're actually consolidating what was previously, oh, this is the wrong, that wasn't what was supposed to show up. This is the next item. This is City Center. Let me see if I can pull up those correct documents. There we go. For sake of time, I'm just going to bring up the draft plat. That way we're not waiting on the upload for the vicinity map here. Okay, we'll give it a try. Try one more time. Looks like it's.
Yeah, if you get stuck, you can just explain it. If it's
Okay. So this is just
There
the
you
draft plat. So excluding the vicinity map, which in the next group of PDFs we should be able to see. The detail of all these PDFs is getting so deep, so much more detailed that the data has a hard time keeping up on these limited internet and Wi-Fi services. Anyway, this is 141 East, 100 North. This is actually a single lot in the Norlander subdivision that had previously been subdivided, reconsolidated, subdivided again, and now we're reconsolidating again. So wouldn't be unusual if you recognize this lot. The reason for that is as new properties come in, sometimes they believe that they might be able to sell or develop the property better as 2 lots, and then other developers attempt at 1. So now we do currently have an application going in for a development here. So it is well on its way. We're not spinning our wheels that we believe anyway, but vacating this property line here, returning it to the single parcel, but will now be acknowledged as lot 2C as it's had to go through that process. I'll go ahead and stop sharing, open up for questions there.
any questions on lot consolidation of 241 East 100 North? And I asked Corey to, because some of us are new, to explain this. We probably don't need to go into this much detail in the future because these are pretty easy decisions to make, but I thought it would be good for Jason, and Luke probably is aware of this because he was on the planning commission, and myself, to just kind of get an understanding of what this is all about. So are there any questions for Corey on this consolidation, which is basically taking 2 lots and turning them into 1, essentially, right?
That's right.
All right, Ronnie.
So thanks, Corey, and the Q&As there for answering my question, because I was trying to remind myself about Resolution 33, 2021, which is our pending changes to the R2, 3, and 4 in terms of potentially requiring a percentage set aside for, I'm going to forget the acronym now, some employment, active employment households. Thank you.
That's right.
Okay, there's a brain cell there still. And I know this is just a lot consolidation, but it did raise a question for me that's been out there, which is we're clearly underway on that. You know, this is just a lot consolidation, and even though sometimes people mention what they're thinking about doing, it's neither here nor there really. But I was a little bit concerned because it seems like there have been a few mentions now, even though we haven't had a chance as a group to meet and talk about percentage, you know, if we do put a percentage in place, what that percentage will be. But it seems like we've had a few meetings where there's been a reference to 33% and that having been discussed with developers, and that I wanted some clarity on that because that makes me nervous because we as a group have not had the opportunity to discuss percentages. So it made me a little bit nervous that a percentage was maybe out there. I just didn't want people under the impression that they're being, you know, going to get a certain percentage because we haven't even talked about it yet. So can you just kind of set me straight there?
Sure. Yeah, that is relevant to this project, and by association, this lot consolidation. So the consolidation, what this process is actually a petition to vacate, alter, or amend a subdivision plat. That's the name of the application that comes in. The city council's role in that is purely administrative, in the essence that this is more or less a boundary adjustment that used to be handled through warranty deeds. But as the municipality, we have gotten rights from the state to process and approve these to ensure that it complies with our lot requirements, so that we don't have warranty deeds being submitted to the county and then parcels changing, and then all of a sudden we have parcels that are not complying. So that's what this role is. It's not very discretionary in that sense. However, this is associated with a building permit application, so not a site plan review, but a building permit application for a fourplex. That fourplex is in the R3, was submitted after Resolution 33, 2021, our pending ordinance doctrine, so is needing to comply. So they are one of the few projects we talked about at the previous council meeting that fall within those 7 that are needing to comply with this kind of in between, that pending ordinance doctrine realm, until we get to the official ordinance. What we're needing to do is, because we are not able to prevent projects from moving through the process, and given the specific language of that resolution that said the city will require some percentage of units, it didn't give specifications on very much. It stayed pretty vague. It left it up to staff at that point to develop that. So there, and again, not wanting to deviate too far, but that 33% was created in tandem during our drafting, our staff drafting of the development agreement that we were needing to do with that other rezone project. So while there's not a precedential element that the DA informed this percentage, or that the percentage informed the DA, they were developed simultaneously because we were needing to move forward with projects. The 33 was determined based off of that logic that we went through at the last meeting, and then kind of dove in a little bit deeper with the planning commission and then our consultants with BAE. Since then, since that meeting, our last planning commission meeting, we've actually been reaching out with our land use attorneys, given the reactions from council and planning commission for wanting to more immediately, so during this pending ordinance doctrine, amend that percentage, 33%, which has been the working standard we've been going forward with, to a higher percentage. What that would require is a rational basis amendment to the standards that we have established. So we have now submitted new data to BAE Economics. There are consultants that we're working through as far as the data to support whatever the end percentage is. So once we get that data back, we might have a rational basis to say it's so high that 66% or whatever we think would be within that realm. There is a rational basis to deviate from 33. But for now, any project that was under the previous 33, including this one, we would not be able to change the rules on them halfway through the project without consequences. So any project that might come in following that updated data would have to comply with potentially what that updated data is. Our land use attorneys are even more of the thought that we just keep it standard until April. But there may be some flexibility. We're going to look into that, the legal repercussions of that. So very long-winded answer, but that was a great question that is very pertinent to the next two items. So Ronnie, did I address the question, and what, how can I?
I'll go back to the recording and listen to it again. I really
Okay.
don't remember ever committing to a percentage or understanding that that's what we were doing. So
Right.
I'll
And
go
I
back
don't-
to this.
The city council never did to put it that direction, but the staff was directed, figure it out more or less. And that's what we had to do. So we didn't have time. That's what we're doing now, is coming back to council to create an ordinance. But given that the resolution was passed without any direction, we were left to do that. And that's what the result was. And so the rational basis was presented in that planning commission to kind of more round out where we got that number. While it is a little lower than what the reactions we're getting now ought to be, the ordinance will most definitely be higher, but in what range of higher is where that supported data is going to come from. So it's not discretionary. This is based off of rational basis.
Sorry. Thanks for explaining that.
Sure.
All right, so there's going to be more to come on the R3, R4 discussion and the percentage of active employee households. But for this, Kaylin, did you have a question?
Well, I guess I would just follow up with Ronnie because I'm still confused about this whole process. But I don't know if you want to entertain it now or if you're trying
Well,
to.
I'm not sure if what you guys are talking about has to do with what the motion is to consolidate the property, the lot adjustments. So, Corey, can you maybe clarify
I
that?
guess you could argue that someone's understanding of the answer might impact how they vote.
And maybe to help just clarify, the simpler kind of answer, the takeaway answer is that the data that BAE is developing for us will determine what we can set the percentage at. That's still true. So it's still to be determined. According to our process. Does that help?
No.
Okay.
So my concern is that I thought that the pending ordinance doctrine meant that applications could still be processed, but that if an applicant pursued that they did so with the risk that they were subject to whatever the final outcome was. And what I understand is to be being told is that staff has narrowed that the range of those outcomes that's being presented to developers more narrowly than what I understood that range might be. And so, given that, I don't know if that's a misunderstanding on my part, and I should have asked for a moratorium, in which case there would have been not even the possibility for developers to have their applications processed during this period. I thought this was a softer middle path, but from what I'm understanding, it's softer than I expected, and this is news to me.
Yeah, it's news to me too, but.
Luke?
I guess my question, like kind of piggybacking off of that in relation to the two items at hand, since there's this request for consolidation, but you said it's also concurrent with a permit that has been submitted. With the permit that's been submitted, is it only subject to the 33% now? or is it still potentially up in the air depending on like any data that we receive from BEI?
The two projects that are associated with the two consolidations, so Auburn townhomes. Sorry, Tani, go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. The two lot consolidations we're dealing with are projects currently going through the both building permit application in the case of the Auburn townhomes, as it's a smaller project. In the case of the city center, it is a larger project, therefore it's going through a site plan application. These projects were submitted under the understanding they'd be able to receive approval and move forward, that it was not a moratorium on multi-households in the R3. That was also my understanding. There's potential that we can reevaluate that, see what the bounds were intended to be. The way the resolution was drafted, it didn't seem to imply that. It said that we would continue to work on whatever that is. And so those two projects are held to the 33. So if you remember the matrix that was shown at the last two meetings, those identified projects are under the 33%. So until we have the data back from BAE and may have a rational basis to amend, at that point, any projects after that point would be then held to the amended percentage. And then once the conclusion of the ordinance comes in, any projects held after that time of the ordinance would be held to the final percentage. Yeah, without putting a moratorium, I'm not sure that we could have retroactively imposed regulations on a development. And this is something that we could get into the weeds with our consulting land use attorneys, that they could have proposed, built, and completed a project, and then we would have imposed this regulation after the fact, which they could have potentially contested that is a non-feasible financing or whatever the pro formas would be, and they say we're getting into the takings realm potentially, which is something that we're working to very much avoid with just the ordinance in general. And I think we're in very clear shot of staying between the buoys and not getting to takings territory. But if we were to come retroactively, there I think are repercussions for that. So without having been a moratorium from the get-go, which would have been a potential option, like I think we're saying, I don't think we have that ability to do that now at this point halfway through.
Well, I feel like the pending ordinance doctrine allows developments to have all the other aspects of their development vetted. So setbacks, all the physical constraints, any other constraints other than the issue identified in the pending ordinance, and that was the active employment household percentage. So I did not expect staff to propose a percentage. I just thought that developers were going to be told that this was being developed. We don't have a basis for it yet. We will process your application. If you choose to have it approved, it will still be subject to that, and that's your risk. So, and it's the developer's responsibility to proceed past that point, to understand their finances and make the decision to proceed past that point without the city taking on liability.
That seems that makes sense to me. I think what I'd like to do at this point is reach back out to those consulting attorneys, because as we've been working with them, there hasn't been that flag that's come up, and I don't know if as we've gotten into this, whether that was a question that we maybe should have asked at the very beginning versus the understanding that we kind of came into it with. So I absolutely agree that could be a concept that we may have missed, and maybe have the power to go back and utilize. We'll have to check into that.
Okay.
Tani?
I was just I was just going to, I'm glad Corey brought that up, and I was just going to say, would it make sense to table these two applications until Corey can talk to our land use attorneys and clarify that? Because I was thinking along the same lines as Kaylin, and I believe Ronnie also.
What I might suggest with that is these actions are administrative. There's no discretion. So the rational, I guess rational basis isn't the correct terminology, but the criteria for approval is not discretionary with these. It's more of that the city council is acknowledging that the landowner's property rights are being pursued. So this is not like a minor subdivision where there are criteria, or even a major subdivision. This is the city council acknowledging that the lot conforms to what the required standards are. So I don't think we would have the ability to, again, this is an administrative action, not, I don't believe we'd be able to deny these if they didn't meet the criteria, if they did not meet the criteria of a lot. Does that make sense? So
yeah, so
the
what
property
you're
owner's rights are to do this. We're just simply acknowledging that they meet the lot requirements, zoning and lot requirements.
what you're telling us is these are just lot consolidations. We are just voting to make one lot, two lots into one.
Right.
And that the actual development we will have a chance to vote on later, and we will have that criteria to decide a higher percentage of active employment households.
Correct. Not the city council, I want to specify, because though the city council won't be the land use authority in these two cases. So in the building permit, that's a by right development. So it will require staff level approval. So building permit, building official signature, planning, zoning administrator signatures, city engineer signatures. The site plan, that goes to the planning commission for land use authority. So neither of these will go, but they will essentially go through a land use authority approval that we will hold whatever the standard that we are now revisiting will be applied in both of those scenarios. So both the Auburn and City Center won't come to city council, but whatever city council is able to determine or not determine, that we remove the percentage and say, go ahead, process these. But when city council does make that percentage, that's what will be applied retroactively.
So Tawny, you are correct though. What the decision tonight is to make two lots into one, not what's actually being developed on the property. And that decision doesn't come before us because it's allowed. It's allowed. The only question is the percentage, on a fourplex, and I'm not sure the other one, I think it's an apartment complex, is what that percentage of those units are going to be available for workforce housing. But the decision before you tonight is consolidating two lots into one, and not what's going to happen on the property.
Okay.
That said, in the packet, it is one of our three options to table.
All right, I'll entertain a motion. Anybody want to make a motion? Ronnie?
Darned, the benefits of reading all the lines. I guess I will move to table.
Do you have a timeline? How long do you want to table it for?
Next meeting.
All right. I have a motion to table Resolution 06-2022, approving a lot line consolidation of properties located at 241 East 100 North in Moab, Utah. Is there a second? Kaylin?
I'll second.
All right. We have a motion made by Ronnie to table Resolution 06-22, seconded by Kaylin. Any discussion, Ronnie?
No, I think that will just give me a little added time to digest what I've learned tonight.
Okay. Kaylin? No? Anybody else? Luke?
I have a question if this is like allowable actually, because from what I'm seeing is that the option number 2, continue or table item and give specific direction to the applicant and staff as to additional information. So right now, we're not actually giving staff any sort of directive to gather more information or the applicant.
I can move to table and ask Corey to speak to our attorneys and just ask if there's anything I've missed here that I need to know before I vote at the next meeting.
So Ronnie's amending her motion to table resolution 06-2022 to request that staff ask the applicant for more information on their active employee housing.
No, actually, my motion to table was to have Corey ask our attorney just if there's anything I'm missing here that I need to be aware of to be fully informed before I vote on this.
That's what I have in my notes.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right. We've got a motion, amended motion by Ronnie, seconded by Luke. Any further discussion, Ronnie? Luke? Anybody else? Ronnie, how do you vote?
Aye.
Luke?
Aye.
Tawny? Aye.
Aye.
Jason?
Nay.
Kalen?
Aye.
We've got a motion pass 4 votes for and 1 nay by Jason. Sorry, I didn't quite say that right. Next up is, I'm sure this is going to be a similar conversation. So Corey, why don't you explain this situation?
Sure. So this is the vicinity map for that city center townhomes. This was the vicinity map. So this is the other project area, was these two being consolidated. So what we're seeing here is that vacation of that line there. And technically there is a difference between parcels and lots of a subdivision. As we go to this plat here, you're going to see the difference of the Moab City Council approval versus in the prior, the approval signatures for each of the departments that are included in that review. That's because this is technically what falls under that amended subdivision application, or excuse me, subdivision plat, whereas this is a parcel adjustment. We have, because of our lack of diverse applications, we essentially use one application to process what is similar actions, but this is a parcel adjustment as opposed to subdivision. That's why that is structurally a little bit different. However, what we're again acknowledging, whereas this had previously been done just by the county through warranty deed with no approval by the city, they would have done this and we would have had no idea, and then our maps would have been out of whack with the county. So we're working with the county recorder's office and surveyor to ensure that we are processing these correctly. Same situation, the developer is pursuing a site plan application on this project. It is in the R3. It would have been submitted after Resolution 33/2021. This is a necessary action, as was the other, for that project to move forward for completeness. So when we're processing those site plans, we say this is one of the necessary actions you need to take, similar to actions we've taken with commercial properties, like the Hoodoo Hotel had a plat amendment, if you might recall from last year. I'll stop sharing there. And assume we're, within the same realm of wanting to understand the parameters of the resolution and what those impacts are. We can certainly do that. I understand tabling these items. I would, in the future, we'll definitely make a process of ensuring that those questions are handled prior. I think what I'm nervous of is that we're putting standards of review or questions of comment on applications that are non-relevant. So what would have been better is for the site plan to table any site plan actions versus what we're doing here, because the site, they're very detached. So tabling or denying one of these petitions is very different than tabling a development approval. So I understand what we're doing here, and I think we can manage that. But in the future, I think we'll do a better part on the staff side so that we don't have to cross issues, so to speak. So appreciate definitely the insight from Kaylin and Ronnie and Tani about the pending ordinance doctrine. Hopefully that'll give us a little bit more option moving forward, so we don't have to be so stuck into a particular arena. But I'll leave it there. Thank you.
A motion. Tani.
Given what Corey said, I will move to table resolution 07-2022 until the next meeting, with the same instructions to staff to bring us more information from our land use attorneys to help us understand the concept behind this better.
Second.
I'll second.
All right, motion made by Tawny to table resolution 07-222, a resolution approving the lot consolidation of properties located at 200 East, 196 North, and 200 East, 110 North, pending for our next meeting in order to get more information from our land use attorneys. Any discussion, Tawny?
I just want to ask Corey, is that sufficient direction?
It is. That makes sense.
Okay. No, then.
Kaylin, any further discussion from you?
No.
No? Anybody else? Ronnie? No? All right. I will call for the vote. Tawny?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Jason?
Nay.
Luke?
Aye.
Ronnie?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1 with Jason voting nay. And this will be on our next agenda. And thanks, Corey, for your time. Like I said, short agenda, long meeting. So we'll see what the attorneys have to say, and you'll report back to us in March.
Perfect. I think that'll line up nicely, because we were planning to have a workshop resulting in BAE's data, as well as Snow Christensen's legal update. So it'll fold nicely in that we were doing that anyway.
Okay.
So we'll see you guys then.
All right. Thanks, Corey. Alrighty. We do have an executive session tonight. I was hoping we were going to get done early, but I think we're going to stick right on time and be done by 9:30. That seems to be our end time these days. So we're going to move to update by Carly. And I know she's got some legislative updates to give us and other items that she wants you guys to be aware of. So
Yeah.
take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. So a couple of legislative issues. There's not really concrete feedback yet on the rumored legislation that might be targeting our ability to regulate OHVs here in town, or regulate their noise and the businesses that are here in town. I'm going to be speaking with Casey tomorrow. Hopefully we will see a draft of that legislation. I know he's working very hard to, regardless of kind of what happens, make sure Moab, or what Moab has done, remains protected, and that we will continue to have the authority that we currently do to implement those regulations. There's another rumored legislation about putting restrictions on mandatory inclusionary zoning related to affordable housing, which might undermine some of the discussion that we've had today regarding the R3, R4, and R2 zones, about our ability to even implement what we're trying to pursue at this moment. So I heard about that late last night, and we've been working all today to see if we can get a carve out for Moab, or perhaps buy some time so that we might be able to implement some of those ordinances before basically a prohibition goes into effect at the state level for municipalities to be able to do that. So it's really discouraging. Hopefully we might be able to do something to remedy that attack on our police and zoning power.
So Carly, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if that's the case, then if that what we're hearing is true, then this whole conversation about putting percentages as active employee housing goes out the window.
It might. I have not seen language yet. It's a protected bill, so the league is negotiating this with the bill sponsor. It's not totally clear what it might entail, if it's about inclusionary zoning, if it's about all affordable housing, all sort of housing kind of mandates that a city might implement. So that's we're still trying to find out, and I'm speaking with the director of the league tomorrow early in the morning to see if we can. Moab is unique. We're not like the Wasatch Front that's dealing with some inclusionary zoning issues that I think developers have issues with. We have different housing challenges, and we need not just incentive-based and voluntary options when we're talking with developers. We need mandates as well. Some good news, we have a new assistant planner in the planning department. Jessica Thacker started today. She's a local here in town who are going to be training as an assistant planner. So please feel free to introduce yourselves if you see her there in the planning department.
Excuse me, Carly. Ronnie, is that who's been doing the Moab tailings work? Is that the same Jessica?
I was just confirming. Hopefully you guys didn't poach her from UMTRA.
So you might have.
Hopefully she can do both jobs. I think that's her.
I think we did. She's a geologist, I believe, a geologist by education and training, and we're so lucky to have her. And I'm sorry to UMTRA.
She might be able to do both, because that's a real part-time job, and it would fit nicely actually with what's happening out there for the future development of that project.
Yeah, that's great. I think this was brought up earlier when I was on a call with our lobbyist, actually. I wanted to mention the street lighting conversion, the installations that we have here in town. There's one it's 2 installations on the east side and the west side of town. They each have 3 lights that exhibit the different levels of lighting that we would be installing. So please, as a community, stop by one of these evenings and take a look at the new lights. And there's a QR code, and you'll be able to give feedback and let us know what you think about the different levels. So they're mostly like along 400 North and then here along 300 South, generally where it is, but you can find information. We have a press release out and information on social media and our website about where you can find those. Finally, strategic planning is kicking off here in the next month or so. This is an effort that initiates our budget discussions. So we've scheduled it for March 18th and 19th. That's a Friday and a Saturday, I believe. We're having Logan Simpson facilitate this discussion for us. In the past, we've tried to do it as staff, but just because of limited bandwidth, we thought it might be good just to have a consultant come in and help us with this process. And Ben Billingsley sent out an email to everyone sort of explaining what it looks like. So we're looking forward to that as well. And that's all I have.
Did you want to mention the park planning? The master planning for our parks?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I know earlier we discussed master planning it came up because of the pickleball discussion. And I think Jason and Kaylin both identified a need for us to do that. And I think those kinds of discussions, just like that, are really appropriate for our strategic planning discussion. So we can start prioritizing the level of effort, the council wants to see city staff devote to those kinds of things. So master planning for the parks is long overdue, and we can definitely talk about that for strategic planning.
Great. Thank you, Carly. Any questions for Carly? All right, we'll move on to council reports. Jason.
I haven't had any meetings. I did go to the pickleball demonstration at Old City Park, and which I thought was great. It was a great turnout. I didn't make it to the one the next day at the tennis courts. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot to report. No board meetings this last 2 weeks.
Great, thanks. Tawny.
I went to the Housing Authority meeting on Thursday. They are working on Arroyo Crossing is their biggest project, talking about expanding their office space, and we did get a new board member on that board. And The others were just some personnel issues and things like that. I did not attend the museum board because it was my birthday and my husband took me to dinner, so I slept. But I got an email from the board president, and the museum is going to start to meet quarterly instead of monthly. So that will be nice. And that is about it for me.
Thanks, Tawny. Ronnie?
Okay, bear with my chicken scratch. See if I can read my notes. Let's see. On the 14th of February, the mayor will probably report on this. She and I met with Cara Dornman and Arnie Holtquist from the city's Water Conservation and Drought Management Advisory Board. I'm going to start going to their meetings. I think our first one is the 9th of March. And I think at that meeting, if I recall properly from the email, I'm still trying to get on board. I think they'll be looking at the landscaping recommendations, which I think they've looked at before, but they're going to spend a little more time on. And I think they're also looking at the scope of work. That's the word I'm looking for the water something plan. We talked about it earlier. Sorry, that'll come to me. Let's see, on the 16th of February, we had a system of care meeting, all kinds of interesting things going on there. In our region, we currently have 42 youth enrolled. There is, I believe, capacity for more youth and families to be helped. So please, if anybody knows anyone who can benefit, the contact there is Becky Hinchcliffe. And I have to say, those meetings are just full of so much educational material. The rep from USARA, which some of you may know is the Utah Support Advocates for Recovery Awareness, was letting folks know that she had test strips available and Narcan. And I thought this was interesting. I'm pretty sure I took notes accurately on this, that a lot of the drugs people are taking in the community now are testing positive for fentanyl. And that even goes down to some that people might consider relatively harmless and recreational. So something for everybody to be aware of. And let's see, what else have we got? We had our first kind of group vision team meetings on February 17th, and I couldn't make the 4 p.m. Meeting with the other members, but they accommodated me at 2. And we had a really interesting discussion about the survey that will be coming out for the community in the next few weeks. I attended both pickleball demos. I just want to thank people again for educating me about so many things, lots of good conversations. And it really felt like people were trying to find a win-win situation for the community. So thanks to everyone for that good energy. We did not have a Grand Water and Sewer Service Agency meeting. They tend to happen twice a month if there are enough agenda items. So the one on the 17th was canceled, but I did have a good Zoom with Dana Van Horn, where she gave me some good basic starter education about GWISA. And aside from attending the daily legislative updates that I've been able to make, we did have a legislative policy committee meeting today. And just because you all might be thinking it, I thought you might be interested to know that there is a water-wise landscaping bill, HB 282, Wilcox's bill, moving through. And initially, Utah League of Cities and Towns was opposed to it, but they've come to a happy place between the two of them. And I thought you might find it interesting to just hear this little tidbit from the bill. So it says that a municipality may not enact or enforce an ordinance, resolution, or policy that prohibits or has the effect of prohibiting a property owner from incorporating water-wise landscaping on the property owner's property. So I think that is it for me.
Interesting tidbit, considering what we're trying to do. Kaylin.
I attended both pickleball demonstrations. Very informative on lots of discussions and listening. And I watched the Planning Commission meeting, the last one, because they were discussing the R3, R4 amendments. They didn't have a quorum, but they had a significant discussion, and it seemed like it was mainly about, at least amongst the non-quorum membership that were present, trying to maximize the AEH percentage. But no regularly scheduled board meetings, so that's it.
Thank you. Luke?
I was out of the country for a little bit, but I was able to meet with Rihanna at the MVMC and just kind of talked about the various services and supports that they offer to the community, which is a tremendous amount. So I'd really want to recognize all of the work that they have done and continue to do. It seems as though whenever some sort of crisis comes up in our community, they step in to kind of help fill that gap. I do know that they have been overworked for as long as I've known them. And so would like to continue like a working relationship with them, because I think they really have an insight into parts of our community that a lot of people really don't. And there's some really important parts of our community. And then just to kind of piggyback off of what Ronnie had alluded to earlier, working at the hospital in the behavioral health, like addictions department, there has definitely been an increase in the number of substances that are tested positive for fentanyl. And so if anybody has any sort of questions as to what the drugs are made up of, the hospital has like thousands and thousands of fentanyl test strips that are being given out for free. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the hospital and you can go pick some of those up. And I think they're also scattered across some of the various nonprofits in the community as well. But that's all I have.
Thanks, Luke. You might think twice about going to Fiji next time when you could be here going to a pickleball demonstration. So,
Yeah.
all right. All I have, just to reiterate, I met with Cara and Arnie and Ronnie with the water board to just get an update from them and talk about the future of that board and where we anticipate that they might be useful for us with our water planning. I spoke at the chamber luncheon. That was really good. Met with a lot of people and was able to share all the things that we're doing, all the good things that we're doing here at the city. And then I also was able to give an update to the League of Women Voters on the state of the city, which is also really good. They did ask me about the truck convoy. I had no idea what they were talking about. I mean, they said, so what do you think about the truck convoy? And I'm like, what about, I don't know what you're talking about. Did that ever happen? Did that happen? Does anybody know?
I think we can check with law enforcement, but I know they were planning to meet at 3 p.m. in town. And I passed through a bit before that. And then later that evening, I didn't see anything, but it doesn't mean I didn't miss something. I don't know if anybody else.
Yeah. I don't think it happened, but anyway.
I think there were about 5 trucks.
That's not very many considering how many go through town. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. I'm going to be meeting with Jen Sadoff tomorrow to talk more about what I mentioned a few meetings ago, the MAPS property and developing healthcare employee housing on that piece of property and actually looking at the whole piece. So starting to move forward with that. Other than that, that's all I have. And now I would like a motion to move to go into an executive session to discuss imminent or pending litigation.
I can make that motion.
Motion made by Tawny, seconded by
I'll second.
Luke. Any discussion? Tawny, how do you vote?
Aye.
Luke?
Aye.
Kaylin?
Aye.
Ronnie?